Okay.
All right. In three, two, one. Hello, hello again, people. Welcome to another episode of your favorite person's second favorite podcast. This is the Conflict Management Show. We are two dudes talking about the world of MMA, combat sports, and we're just here to chop it up with you. I am your co-host, the one, the only, Malik Miles, not WrestleMania, Malik Mania. WrestleMania may be tomorrow, but Malik Mania is here today. Mr. Main Event, Mr. Top 3, not number 3, not number 2. Why? Because I'm number 1. And so, we almost forgot the other part, but we'll do that afterwards. And then my co-host.
Yeah. The man with so little fame, they gave him one name. It's Edon back here looking at these fights with y'all.
Yeah, and so I forgot to say, yes, good morning, good afternoon, good night to wherever you are watching in the world. So here we are again, the Brandon Allen versus Curtis 2. But before we get into that, there was news going on, news that has been going on, and I think it's pretty much over. But the Jamie Varner's beef with Laura Sanko, oddly, I feel like it's an odd beef to have with someone, because I feel like if you're a fighter and have beef with someone who's a commentator, just feels odd. And I feel like the reason he was mad just felt, I don't know, like petty, or just felt like unnecessary. Because the comments he had made, I feel like I mean everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but those opinions can be wrong too.
Well, let's get into
But
the gist of this, because I wasn't super familiar with this. You kind of brought this to me and to us. So what is the gist of the complaint?
Okay, so essentially, Jamie Varner, fighter, pretty much said that Laura Sanko, UFC commentator, all around awesome lady, essentially said that she wasn't like qualified to be a UFC commentator. She's not qualified. She doesn't have the credentials to essentially qualified to do all this stuff. And pretty much he put out stuff saying that she was like a tryhard and she doesn't really know what she's talking about, and like why do we have her on the air, that type of stuff. Those were just a few quotables of what he had said, and I was just like, come on, bro, you just sound, is it me, or does he just sound a bit salty? Because
So I don't really understand what the basis is, because Laura Sanko,
it came out of nowhere.
Did fight. She didn't
exactly
fight the UFC, but she does have fight experience, and to the best of my knowledge, she still trains to this day. It's when she has availability. So the whole idea that she does or doesn't, that's not really up for dispute. She did fight. She does train. That's not kind of up for debate. I think the more interesting thing is that something that should be required to be on a broadcast?
See, I don't think so. But then also, here's the thing, though. Like you said, Laura Sanko did fight. She just didn't fight in the UFC, and the only reason she didn't fight in the UFC was because the UFC didn't have or doesn't have a 105-pound weight division. That's about it. So she trained, she fought, and she said she would have been down to fight in the UFC, but there's no her weight class didn't exist. So now but on top of that, I think that Laura Sanko, of all the commentators, right? I think a lot of them do a great job. I think there's like everything, you're gonna have your favorites, but then I do think she's a bit of a not even a bit, like she is a unicorn for the UFC, because who do you know who's can handle like the color commentary, the interview with the fighters, sitting on the desk, also doing the as far as like contender series, like she pretty much anywhere. And she's also, like a lot of us who are in the MMA community, she's a fight nerd in the best way possible. She does the research. She does um all on all of the fighters. She whenever you see her giving like interviews or when you hear her talking, you can feel the energy. She just gives off good energy, positive vibes, and I think that as fans, I would like to say the large majority of us appreciate that kind of like that good vibes, that good energy, because
Mm.
she's a fan just like all of us. When you're watching it with your friends, being like, "Hey, that was crazy, that was dope," you know what I mean? But then also I think the fighters appreciate it too. Just having people who like know what's up, and when you're talking, if you just had either the best fight of your life, you want someone who's gonna come up with that good energy and be like, "Oh man, good job," da, da, da. You'll be like, "Hey," you're just feeding off the good energy, even if you had the back, or maybe not the best performance, but seeing someone who coming up with the good energy, good vibes. I think that also um, is a good time rather than someone just kind of like who may not have known who are didn't do the research. You know what I mean? Who might have been like, you know what I mean? Came up with energy. You know what I mean? And also, it's really hard to be on the desk or to be a UFC commentator. You don't get the position unless you like are the best. And if I'm not mistaken, she is either the second. She's either the first or second woman to be doing commentary for the UFC. The At least of the modern era, she's the first. And that like, but to your other question, the do you need to be a fighter to be a commentator? I don't necessarily think so, but I think it could help. Like, let's say for example, like to my knowledge, John Anik, I know he's the play-by-play guy, but
Mm.
John Anik isn't a fighter. But everyone enjoys what John Anik does. He is the voice of the UFC. You know what I mean? Like without John Anik, you don't have some of the background tracks to some of the biggest moments throughout the sport. You know what I mean? I do think does being a fighter help? Sure. Yeah, I guess. But is it like does it help? Yeah. Is it completely necessary? I don't think so. I think as long as you are just knowledgeable of the sport or like knowledgeable of the sport, fan of the sport, and like willing to do like that research to like, oh, let me go look up this dude or this lady who's on the early prelims. You know what I mean? Because
Mm.
chances are, if you don't, I'm not gonna just put you on a pay per view main card type thing. You know what I mean? You're probably gonna have to do it, start from the beginning. Orosenko was on the Contender Series, doing that one for that. So I think just getting to do that research on all these guys who are on the local circuit who are coming into the Contender Series. Okay, what is their story? What is their background? What is their strengths, their weaknesses, their record? Da, 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 da. You know what I mean? So I think as long as you're willing to do the research and you're like a fan of the sport, I think should be fine. I don't. I think if you're a fighter, if you're a former or current fighter, I think hey, that may even better. I don't necessarily think you have to be. But what about you?
So I think that there's a carve out for at least like one person who has no fight experience, just as someone who brings a different kind of flavor of entertainment to the broadcast. I think there's room for that. But I do think that most of like the play-by-play guy, he doesn't have to have fought before. Like that's fine as long as he's familiar with the positions and he's not saying like the wrong thing. He's not saying like a guillotine is a Kimura or something like that. As long as he's familiar with the positions, I don't think it's necessary for him to have fought before. And I think that there's still kind of room on broadcast to have somebody who's kind of giving a different entertainment flavor to it and like being kind of the representative for the audience who the vast majority have also not competed before. So I think that there's room for that. I still think probably it is best for the analyst positions to have the vast majority of them be former fighters, and I think as it doesn't really matter the level so much as long as they've had it before, just to be able to kind of have a basis of understanding Like to me, I don't need that for the credibility necessarily, because I think that you can just study and have credibility from that, or be kind of able to observe enough, and you can kind of get a credibility from your observations. But I think that there's an element that an analyst needs to bring. At least somebody on the broadcast has to have that fight experience to be able to explain certain kind of moments and mindsets. Because even though every fighter is going to deal with things slightly differently, it's to be able to relate why someone might do something that appears weird from the outside to the person who's never fought before. I think it's important to have somebody who has fought before just to be able to explain, like, oh, this is what that is, or that didn't look like much, but it really is like a major thing, for like eye pokes and stuff like that for some people who have never kind of been involved in that, to be like, hey, those eye pokes are real and it didn't look like much. It looked like it just kind of touched, but getting touched in the eyeball does make a big difference.
I agree. I would say I agree. I think that like individual like does an individual need to be a fighter? But as far as like a whole like desk, I would agree. I think that like you have like one person. I think for one person or maybe yeah one person for a person an individual to get into UFC commentary, I feel like okay maybe you don't need to be fired. You could just study like you were saying. But as far as like the whole desk of people who've never fought, I don't necessarily agree. I think yeah, like you should have some fighters, like like how the US it kind of is current, or some fighters are people who've done martial arts, where like who is familiar with it. You know how like you'll see like like DC Bisbing and like Joe Rogan, because to my understanding, Joe Rogan's he is a martial artist, but
Mhm.
he's never like was in like Bellator or like those other fight organizations. You know what I mean? Like to my
Right. He never
understanding, he's never
competed
like
in
he
MMA.
never competed, but he is yeah he never competed in MMA, but he is a martial artist.
Mm.
Um, like a lifelong martial artist. But it's like so I think yeah that like having okay, that's cool. And we're back.
Smooth transition.
Yeah. That was funny to me, but yeah, and we're back. So getting into the first the first card. What are your overall thoughts for the Alan Curtis 2?
So I thought for the whole card, um, pretty forgettable overall, if we're honest. I mean, there were a couple of people who had like kind of decent performances, but overall, I mean, there's like one or two semi-controversial like judging things, a couple like decent performances, but especially when you're coming off of the last fight night, which was in an arena, and then you take this one to the Apex, and nobody really like has a big moment. I don't know. It becomes one of the ones that's really forgettable to me, because it's when
Mm,
it really the kind of memories that I have of the sport are really anchored to like big interesting moments, and like when you have a crowd present, it's really easy to have more of that interplay with the audience, and like an interesting big reaction that kind of gets you excited and brings you into it and makes it memorable for you. So with the Apex ones, outside of some of the most like outstanding fights like Poirier versus Hooker, like that's an Apex one that will live forever. But if you don't have like an outstanding fight, like a fight of the night type of deal, I don't know. It just kind of fades for me eventually.
The I think for me, I think this was one of those fight cards where I do. I will say that like the arena shows compared to the Apex shows, the arena shows are going. I feel like generally most times are going to be more memorable than the Apex shows.
Mhm.
So while I do think the Apex is like good for um like either it served it was really good for during the pandemic ish time
Mhm.
when you couldn't go a lot of places. But I think now that we are getting back, now we are back in full swing going places. I do think that if I had a choice, arena or Apex, definitely choosing arena shows
Yeah.
10 times out of 10. I don't know many people who are gonna say like Madison Square Garden or the Apex. I don't know too many people would be like, yeah, turn on that Apex. Give me the Apex, you know? Or
Mhm.
you go into like T-Mobile Arena or like the what is that arena in France? The Genesee. I apologize if I'm butchering that name. But the arena they go for UFC pairs. That show is or the O2, you know what I mean? Like that or like that the one they do for UFC Paris sells out every time. But yeah, I think that there's not too many from the Apex that I remember. Only ones I think I remember from the Apex is because DC retired in the Apex, right?
I think so because I think the whole
Pandemic time.
yeah trilogy with Stipe was when they couldn't do arenas.
And I think I might be wrong, but I think Brennan Moreno and Figueroa, one of their four fights was in the Apex. But
Oh yeah, I mean just
and then
statistically,
and I think
probably.
maybe one of the yeah probably, and then I think maybe one of Tatsuro Taida's fights were there. I can't remember, but that
He might
shows
have had
you
a couple.
far and few between are the stuff that like far. There's some memorable moments, but for the most part, I think most people prefer the arena shows over the Apex shows. Um, I know some. I've heard some fighters say that like it is nice to just be able to like get in and get out for like the Apex shows. But I think
Mhm.
most people prefer the crowds, the energy, the arena. I think both fans and fighters, but I think this card in particular was one of those cards where the prelims there was more notable things, or there was more to take away from the prelims than there was the main card, or the ones where like it was more there were more memorable or notable moments from the prelims.
Mhm.
And usually it's the other way around where it's like the main card is the main attraction. And while they were well, there was some good moments or big moments from the main card, but I think that the prelims overtook it because there was like one or two moments on the main card this time compared to like the three or four that was on the prelims. And usually that's the opposite. But um without further ado, first fight I believe is the Arqueta and Masimoto fight, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first kind of standout moment.
Yeah, that was the first one that kind of like if I'm like without looking at the card again, yeah, that was like the first ones that kind of was like it popped up that like registered, you know, got another Japanese fighter in the UFC. I'm here for he represents Brazil technically, but like I saw that name and I was like, hey, my
Well, he
people.
does both. It's in
um
his walkout, he had a
yeah,
Japanese
yeah, yeah,
headband.
yeah. I'm blanking on the word right now. I'm blanking. There's a name we have for those kind of headbands. So there you I'm blanking on that name. I'm blanking on the name, but the usually see when people have like George St. Pierre had them, and sometimes you'll see people that say like Ichiban, like you know what I mean, like number one on
Mhm.
it. It's kind of like a good luck thing. So when I saw that, because I was like, oh, that's cool, but because fun fact, the if the English, the outside of the Japan, Brazil is actually the second has the second outside of Japan. Brazil has the second largest population of Japanese people in the world. Yeah, I thought it would be the US, but no. Yeah, there's a lot of Japanese people in Brazil. Like Sao Paulo, if I'm not mistaken, too. Um, but side tangent over 16 and 0. I when I saw this 100 significant strikes in his last fight on the contender series. That's pretty insane. And then to see, you know, that's kind of like that's pretty impressive. But seeing that the man has a black belt in Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu, from when I saw it, looked like he was trying to get stuff started on feet. Um, but he got the decision. I feel like the way this fight ended, I was expecting when they was hyping him up, I was expecting this was gonna be like kind of like a firefight where there's gonna be a lot of striking, but Argenta, I guess, know, he tried his best to shut down that part of the game and kind of like keep the pressure on him. But man, that was a an ending right there because that's like you're watching when you're watching those movies and it's like oh the clock's ticking, it's like by the it's like if you're watching like a football movie or like a boxing movie, it's like the round's over in 5 seconds, 4 3 6 3 2 1, and then it goes bang. That's essentially what this fight what that ending sequence was, because to get, if I'm not mistaken, a guillotine choke with
Mhm.
1 second left. That is crazy. Because yeah, I thought it was pretty impressive because when I saw that I was like, yeah, I just thought it was crazy because the high pressure and like like the high pressure wrestling and all that stuff. When I saw that, I was kind of I think yeah, I thought it was 4 or 5 seconds left, but I guess when they took the sign away, but yeah, guillotine, second round submission. I was like, okay, 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 okay. We got him in the bantamweight now, and then there's Rinya Nakamura. So I think that the bantamweight is going to be pretty interesting, and I think that would be a cool fight to see later on because well balanced and whatnot. But yeah, I think so. Slowly getting out there, but yes, good job to John Masumoto. Omedeto on your UFC debut win.
Yeah. Also,
What
just
about you?
for the record, it's his last three submission victories are all by guillotine. So it seems like that's
Mhm,
something that he's really comfortable with, and that might be one of his specialties. Which
mhm,
kind of later on in his career, maybe less so go for those because it's as much as Dustin Poirier would advise you to keep jumping it, it's sometimes that kind of puts you in a bad spot
yeah.
if you don't manage to get it. But it's the skills were on display, man. It's definitely looked composed and ready. And I mean, a guy that's just 24 years old uh, to be coming into the UFC and putting on a performance like that, where you showcase all of your skills already and like a well-rounded game and get the finish. I mean, it's there's this crop of like younger guys down at the lighter weight classes that are coming in young with experience already and look like they're
Hmm.
ready to kind of take their shot up at those upper guys at the lighter weight classes. Because I would not want to be hanging around as an older guy up at like 125, 135. You gotta pick your spots with these young
Yeah.
guys.
It's a lot of really great talent coming into the UFC because because I will say Argetta tried. He tried his best because there was a
Mm,
lot of like he tried to shut down the striking with the like the high pressure wrestling and whatnot and try to pressure, but he was adaptable. He said "Voop," because it was a hard night out for him. Just because I think it's what is all right. This is because I think it was like back to back no contests going in, and then also this
yeah.
loss. It's
Hmm.
like if it was a tough night out, but hopefully he gets back. But yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, uh, Matsumoto was the youngest fighter on that card at like 24, and yeah, you're starting to see a lot of just younger fighters, but also a lot of this newer generation of fighters. You're starting to see you see them come in like super well rounded, but yeah, like or very talented people. Like I know Robles is more on the like older side, but this new crop of fighters that are coming in, you're seeing them come in with a lot of skills or who are very talented, and just also very just super skilled, like Tatsuro Taira, Reina Nakamura, Matsumoto, Robles. You see, I mean, I would say Cyril's. I don't know if Cyril falls into this newer, but like JDM, uh, Shavkat, all these guys who've been coming in as of lately. Natalia Silva. Yeah, if you're like someone who's been like a mainstay in the division, or uh, yeah, it's you kind of like Bo Nickel, like you're seeing all these fighters come in, and you're just like, ooh, yeah, it's I think good for the division to kind of get new life, breathe new life into these divisions. But yeah, if you're someone like a veteran, I think it definitely keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like we're saying, it's a guy who's 24 putting on that kind of performance. It's
Hmm.
your kind of mind goes straight away to what could this guy be in like 5 years time? If he's
Oh yeah,
putting in five more years of work on top of what he already is, like how much more room is there left to grow for a guy like that?
yeah. I'm excited to see what he does in the UFC. I'm looking forward to seeing like how he progresses. Hopefully either him or Nakamura gets the title. I'd be happy either way. Hoping for good things for both of them. But yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how he progresses. The
So,
uh,
do you want to go from that
Go ahead.
Brazilian
Sorry.
to another one?
Another Brazilian. Yeah, from that Brazilian to another Brazilian. I was just pulling up the fight card just now because my notes were out of order. But going from one Brazilian to another Brazilian. Norma Dumont against Durandamy. I've always had trouble saying her name. Um, good fight for Norma Dumont. I would say she's on a win streak. I think this makes it four in a row now. Against a very tough veteran because Brenda
Yeah, and a
Randy
former champion.
was, yeah, the first featherweight champion. And like I think this was a very big one for her. I think that this her wrestling, Norma Dumont's wrestling. I think because at first, this is what I thought at first, right? I
Mhm.
thought it was gonna be like Dutch Muay Thai versus Chinese Sanda. Sanda. If you don't know what Sanda is, like Chinese kickboxing, if I'm not mistaken, it's like I thought it was gonna be like because she's Norma Dumont's like six-time Sanda champion. Randami is like a really great Muay Thai, like if not mistaken, Muay Thai champion. So I thought like, okay, it's gonna be striking. But she said, Norma Dumont pulled up with the Uno reverse. She said, "Psych, Yu-Gi-Oh trap card. Here's that wrestling for you." And she did a really good job. I'd say her wrestling was on point. Like, I was like, okay, I'm here for it. I'm here to see it. There was some moments where like Geronimo had some moments when they were standing up, because one of the things I saw, right, when they were in the clinch and you saw Duran going for those knees, it wasn't that like that's how she's high level Muay Thai person because she wasn't just like here in the clinch and just throwing knees just to be throwing them. Not like instead of just burning, she was like finding those spots and like bam landing those knees, which I thought was she had her moments, but overall, really great performance for Norma Dumont. So yeah, I had it at 2-0 for her going into the third, and then so I thought she won all 3 rounds. I saw some people say there was like uh it was tied going into the third, but I didn't really think so. I feel like Durandame had some big moments, had some moments, but I don't think it was enough to be like to give her a round. But yeah, this is big for Norma Dumont. 4 fights in a row, beating a super tough opponent like Durandame. Like, hey, props to her.
Yeah, for sure. I
Looking forward
mean,
to seeing.
it's to come through, be on a win streak. You get a former champion, which it seems like the weight class has kind of gone away, but that's still a former champion who's beat uh, some really tough opponents and who has a very obvious skill set in her kind of own right. It's to to come through that and be able to use your whole game. And it wasn't like it was just, I mean, the of the victory was definitely built off the grappling, but she still had some moments in space, I thought, where she still was able to effectively strike and put together some of her own offense. It's I thought the clinch, like you said, was a little bit worrying sometimes. Like it seems she kind of got controlled there a little bit, but that's kind of to be expected against someone who's got world class kickboxing skills in your weight class. I mean that you're not going to win every single position. But she did a good job of getting it to a position where she could win and ultimately making the fight about that. So definitely a good performance. Like you said, she's on a streak. She only has 2 losses in the UFC. One of them was on her debut, and the other one was by split decision. So it's, I think, at this point, when you're looking at, she was ranked 11. She fought a former champion. I mean, I don't know if she's still active, but she's still in the rankings. So I think next, I would have liked to see Norma call out Misha Tate because Misha
Ooh, I
Tate's
like
ranked
that. I
number
like that.
7. Norma's
Hmm.
ranked number 11. Like, if Misha's still going to be in the rankings, she's got to fight eventually. And
Hmm.
Misha's got kind of a grappling style, so you could make it kind of like you know, who's the real grappler in in this division. And
She may hit her with the Uno
from
reverse and be like, ah, now we're having a striking affair.
yeah, because sometimes that happens. You put two kind of grapplers together
Hmm.
who are confident in their skills, and it'll end up just being a kickboxing match, which I think could be really interesting for both of them.
Hmm.
And I think that would be a close fight and something that could be exciting.
Yeah, and other last thing before we move on is like other thing that had me kind of nervous for her is when they were in the clinch, like she got out of it and she got out of it with no problem. But like usually it's like a bad thing to do is like when she was in the clinch, when she had her in that little tie clinch, you saw Norma Duran when she was trying to get out, she like ducked her head down and then pulled out, which is generally like a really like dangerous thing to do. Like you know how it's just like how we were saying that you don't want to just fall into like guard, you know what I mean? You don't want to just fall to the ground. It's like it's one of those things where because the reason why it's so dangerous is like you put your head face down and then to pull out, you could catch a knee to the face. You know what I mean? Like you're going into the direction of putting yourself in harm's way. So, but she got out of it. She didn't have it where she didn't get hit with anything crazy. So it was like I was here for. I was like, okay, cool, cool, cool. But yeah, that was like one other moment where I was kind of like, oh, and because I thought she was gonna catch a knee to the face. But other side note, kind of unfight related,
Hmm.
along to that fight, along with the Norma Dumont fight, along with Norma Dumont, that's kind of not fight related. The Spartan tattoo, that was dope. That's a dope tattoo. I feel like there's a lot of fighters with tattoos, right? There's a lot of cool tattoos in the UFC today, but that Spartan all over that Spartan sleeve, that's a fire tattoo though.
I will say I've seen a few like in that kind of style. I thought that one's kind of one of the better ones, but also
Yeah.
I don't like. the super like tough tattoos because sometimes when you are getting beat up and like the thing that's facing the camera is your tough tattoo, it does look like bad, you know?
You just
If
gotta make
like
sure you don't lose.
yeah, if someone's on your back and like you're in the rear naked choke and you got your like shoulder up in the air trying to like dip to try and make an angle and get some air, and that's like the thing the camera zooms in on, like it does make your tattoo look crazy.
It's you know what I feel like in those moments. Uh, yeah, that is a funny observation. I feel like it's only bad if you're. I think for that one, I think I can let that one slide, right? Where I'm like, I'm cool with that, right? Like, if someone could have a cool tattoo and then still get like, you know, put on Dream Street, and I'd be like, oh man, I could be like, ooh, that sucked, but that is also great tattoo. You know, maybe
Mm.
not the best fight IQ, but definitely has great taste with tattoos. You know what I mean? I could still be like, oh, that's still a good tattoo, but ooh, tough, tough uppercut. But you know what's one I feel that way about
Mm.
is the nicknames,
Yeah.
fighter nicknames. If you have a really nickname, like a really tough like nickname, and you just get like beat to sleep, I'm like, ooh, that's a wild one. I don't think you like. I feel like your name can't be like God of War, and then you out here just getting beat to sleep. Or put on dream sleep. Someone just got you bent up in a pretzel, got you in a go-go plata, and got you in a omoplata, got you in a like a twister. You just out here looking at the ceiling lights, getting involuntary yoga, doing involuntary yoga, getting folded like laundry. That one's I feel like a tad bit like more of like oof, or you just get like roundhouse kicked into oblivion. I just be like, I feel like I feel like yeah, for those nicknames, no, what's the other person? I can't remember whose the name was. I saw the nickname and I was like, that is a really. I was like, oh, that's a pretty epic nickname. I like the nickname. And then their nickname did not match the performance that they put on that night. I was just like, yeesh.
See, I think it's fine if the result doesn't go your way. I think it's as long as you live up to the style. So like
Yeah,
if Nate the Train came out in his next fight and was like counter punching and sitting on the outside and like point fighting to a decision, then you'd be like, what kind of train is that? Like the backup train, the circle around train? Like what? I've never seen any train like that before. Like if your name's
I
the
think
train, you gotta go forward.
yeah, I will say, but yeah, that's what I'm talking about though. Like your name got you get either got to live up to the nickname or just have like a nickname that doesn't necessarily sound like, oh man, I'm like the toughest uh dude this side of the Mississippi. You know what I mean? Like you gotta have or a lady. You know what I mean? It's like oh, what's there's like Izzy's name, Last Albender. That's an epic nickname, but it doesn't. That name doesn't is not like whether Izzy wins or loses, he's always styling on people. You know what I mean? Whether it's the press conference, whether it's most times, right? Where it's the press conference, the fights, you know what I mean? As long as you're putting style behind it, right? You're like living up to the nickname, you know what I mean? Whether he wins or loses, it doesn't like he beat pretty much every person. Like he beat Whitaker or he lost, when he lost to Strickland. It does not affect his nickname or his stock really to me personally, right?
Right.
The who's another John Jones's last name nickname. It just rhymes. He has a great like nickname because it rhymes. John Bones Jones, right? But whether John Jones wins or loses, like he doesn't ever lose really. But like actually, yeah. So, but yeah, win or lose, you're good. But if your name like Robert Whitaker has a really dope nickname. Robert the Reaper Whitaker, like that's but he fights as such. Like he's coming
Yeah.
in and he is putting in that work. I feel like that would be different if like we saw Rob. have a nickname like that and then also like not show up. You'd be like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Or if like he was finishing the fight backing up because he thought it was up on points. Like I don't think we've ever seen Robert Whitaker like finish
nah,
a fight backing up, not looking for it all the way to the end.
exactly. Like Max Holloway. Blessed, like yo, he be really fighting like he is the anointed one. Like he be really fighting like he is the blessed one. Like, cause yo, Max 30, what is it, 32 pro fights, and he's never been knocked down or knocked out. And he has not lost unless your name is Alexander Volkanovski, another great nickname, the Great. Um, Outside of him, he does not lose. So I feel like the name is very fitting.
Yeah.
Now, it'd be different if he was on a streak like Tony Ferguson, you know what I mean? Whereas like, you know, it may be like 5-6 and you're losing, and then it's just like the nickname is like you know what I mean? But side tangent aside, the but speaking of the nicknames, speaking of things that fit don't fit, the Vol Volter Volter. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Volter. Okay, yes.
Seems
Volter Walker. Huh?
Mhm. I was gonna say
Singer.
seems like Walter.
Volter. No, I because I had whatchamacallit in my head. I was
Mm.
thinking of I had the word Volter and we're still talking about Volkanovski, so I almost
Oh, okay.
said Volker. Like because I was still thinking Volkanovski. Mess up on my part. Not enough coffee, but Volker versus uh Brevsky.
Lucas.
That fight. Yes, Lucas. Again, apologies on the name. But the that one that was an interesting one. Uh First going with the fight, outside of along with the fight, I didn't know Johnny Walker had a brother
Yeah.
until until the fight, right? Um because and then also they are so polar opposite different. When they said, yeah, you know, starting his UFC debut, Johnny Walker brother, you know, his brother's giant. Like
Yeah.
for like heavy, even for heavyweight, he's big. But they're so different. Where you know, like Johnny Walker's coming out with the like, he's got the very like extroverted personality. He's very like got the crazy dances, crazy entrances. He's all fun and vibes. You know what I mean? He's got the like the crazy striking style. He's throwing spinning strike. He's out there going for the finish. You know what I mean? He's doing the worm. You know what I mean? Like, and his brother is so polar opposite. He came in zero fun. He said this is serious business out here. We ain't out here on the fun and games tip. He said we out here serious business. I'm walking out like I'm Andre the Giant. He came in there no vibes, just all serious. You know, Andre the Giant walk out. If you don't know who that is, he was like a 500-pound wrestler back in the day. He just came out there. He just came out there and he literally walked. How Johnny Walker's a striker, his brother is a heavy wrestler who's and good at it, but heavy wrestler came in. Uh, yeah, he was just stone face walking in. But the fight itself, though, before I give my opinions on it, what did you think?
I'll be real. I thought it was super sloppy. Like,
Hmm.
I thought there were a bunch of times where Walker was gonna use his grappling, and like during the course of the fight, he got into some really good positions. Like, he was at like full mount basically. I think maybe twice, if not more. And you think like, okay, this is heavyweight, so the guy who's 265 when he gets on top, like he's gonna hold position. He's gonna do like some decent punching from top, and then it's gonna be all over. And then for whatever reason, like he just let bro up. Like I I don't really understand what he was going for, like what what he was looking at, but there were so many times where his technique got sloppy, and instead of doing what normal heavyweights do, which is like, okay, we're not going to secure this position, but I'm just going to punch you a bunch, and because I'm a massive human being and nobody can really take these shots for that long, this is going to end the fight for me. Instead, he was like sort of trying to get position, and then like once we got past like I don't know 7 minutes, these dudes got exhausted quick, and so it just got sloppier and sloppier as the fight went on, to the point where in the third round it felt like a reversal was happening like every 90 seconds. Like someone would be on top and you're like, oh, it's gonna be over, and then whoever was on bottom would like find their way out the back door, and then they'd be on top. You'd be like, oh my god, he's gonna reverse it and finish the fight, and then he just wouldn't. Like he'd end up getting rolled over, and you're like, what is this fight? Like what even is this? Because they're both hitting each other, but for some reason nobody's going down and nobody looks that good.
Yeah, I feel like both people kind of felt that way. Felt like a little bit like you could definitely tell that both of them were, at least in my opinion, when I was watching it, both of them, you could see that Lucas is a striker, and that's what he was hoping to do. Walter is a wrestler, and that's what he was planning to do. And they both had no intentions on doing the other like skill set. You know, like you saw during that fight, Lucas was a striker, and that's what he was trying to do, strike, because his ground game was pretty like his takedown defense and ground game was pretty non-existent throughout that fight. And you could tell like he is a strike. He's like, yo, I'm a striker, and this is what I came to do is strike. Because that ground game was atrocious. The because one of the things that it I don't know, it kind of annoyed me about the fight is like when he started to get off some shots, you could tell like I think it was second round when he started hitting that flow state and he was getting those shots off and he was just like pop 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 pop. You're like, okay, he's starting to get there. This is what he does. Like he's sitting in his flow. But the first and the third round, what annoyed me about, I guess, or not annoyed, I guess annoyed is a strong word, but I didn't understand about the way he was taking on to the fight until I realized he doesn't have a ground game, is that when Walter would go in for these takedowns, maybe he just doesn't practice wrestling. Maybe that's what it is. It's hard for me to believe that you get to UFC and don't practice wrestling, but maybe he just doesn't. Because Walter would go in for these takedowns and he'd be sitting there. Like one time they were up against Cage, instead of like getting a wizard or like trying to stuff the shot. If you those that don't understand and know what wizard is, go look it up. It's like kind of get under a lot too much to explain for right now. Go look but instead of going for a wizard or stuffing the shot or just stopping the takedown, right? Like most, like I don't know, that's I feel like a first instinct. And someone goes for a takedown and you're up against it, you go for a wizard or try to stop, you know what I mean? You get a wizard, do something, defend yourself somehow. And he would like every time. And I think this is why Vulture got all these takedowns, is because instead of like, again, wizard, stuff, something, you know what I mean? Like he's going for these like random pop shots. Yeah, bite the hands, something. Like he's going for these random like pop shots of like doing these little jabs or like these punches, and he's like, instead of defending the takedown, he's just like, I'm like, what is that? What is that doing for you? What is that going to do? What is that literally going to do against a dude that is 6'6" and 264 pounds? And he's also, I mean, Volker is obviously the bigger heavyweight, and which comes with his own, which that kind of size does come with its own pros and cons. But Lucas was the smaller, leaner heavyweight, and you saw that in the pros and cons of that on like the second round when he was moving around faster. But even when they were on the ground, instead of like fighting the hands and trying to work up to his feet, he's still going for these like And I was just like, I don't know, maybe just as like a wrestler that was like bothering me. I was like slightly annoyed, like, yo, I see this, yo, like
Well, I mean, that's not
fight the
even to
hit,
mention
do something.
there was at least definitely once, probably twice, where he let Walker get his hands clasped behind his back and was like basically not fighting the hands at all, wasn't like trying to move a position, wasn't trying to do that. Like he just let Walker kind of chill and like get his hands firmly grasped like underneath him. And it's like everybody else that's watching is going, okay, he's about to pick you up and put you down. And he's still like you're saying, like trying to hammer fist at him, like that's gonna do something.
Y'all are heavyweights. Like, and he's in a position where you can't generate a whole lot of power from. So I like
Yeah.
whatever you're doing, it's not really doing much damage. It's not like the situation where uh Curtis Blades was against Almeida, where like
Mm.
they're on a knee, but they're like it's clear where you can still like get like a hammer fist where you're generating some power where it's like straight to the head that you're hitting. This
Well,
dude is hitting straight back.
and that
Like
came because Curtis had his wide base. He was defending the takedown, so he had the
exactly.
big wide
And Curtis
base
is a good wrestler.
to
Yeah.
pull from to then land those shots. Whereas it's Lucas was feet basically together with the other dude's arms like underneath his knees, basically like about to get picked up, and he was still like ha 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 ha.
Yeah. I'm like, bro, what is this? And you're hitting straight back or side.
Yeah.
Like what this is literally doing nothing. But like for Volter's side, right? Like even though he wasn't generating a lot of power, Lucas wasn't generating a lot of power doing this. The I would say that like for Volter, like for a heavyweight, like he was generating a fair amount of power, a lot of power from from that position when like from a short area. When they were on the ground doing the ground and pounds, shots that normally wouldn't do much. He was generating a lot of power from like being in a space where there wasn't a lot to load up on. And I
Mhm.
would say the heavy wrestling style did benefit him in the beginning half because when he came in to go against another heavyweight and get three big takedowns in the first round, you know what I mean? And then like another in like the third, I believe, is like good wrestling, good ground control because he had full mount at some point. But the problem that I saw with Bolter was that like while it is promising, he has a very like I know they said he trained in Russia for a large amount of his like early career for a while, where he does have that very kind of like kind of uh sorry, I had a burp. He has that like very heavy kind of like Habib level wrestling kind of style, like the same kind of style like Habib and like kind of like when Habib and Islam are like wrestling, you know what I mean? It's like he's very grappling heavy style. But the problem is I think that he the concern I have of his, just like how I was annoyed with Lucas's ground game and like or lack of, and even when it came to grappling, is Walter's cardio because it seemed by like even though first round one looked like a good round for him, round two it looked like he was done like cardio wise because it like even though I've spent a long time kind of like chopping Lucas for like the wrestling, the you could see Lucas look tired. He was fighting through that exhaustion, and it was doing very well with it because he started hitting his flow state. He was getting with the strikes. Vulture has almost it feels like no stand up, like his and that's where it felt like Vulture as a wrestler. He's like, hey, I've got the ground game, I've got the takedowns, but his striking just did not look on par. Maybe it's just because we know his brother and we know how famous his brother is for his striking that I think maybe I went into it with more expectations that his striking was maybe I thought this is just maybe me. Maybe I had too high of expectations. I think I walked into it like, oh, he prefers wrestling, but he does have some striking ability just because his brother, like maybe because maybe him and Johnny have trained together. Maybe he got some good learned striking through that way. Maybe I was just like overestimated the striking aspect of it. I just thought like he has striking, but he prefers wrestling. His striking wasn't maybe at the level that I thought he would be at because the striking was pretty meh,
I
but the
mean,
cardio was the big thing. Is
I'll be honest, like considering that he's 26, he'll be 27 this year. I, I don't think it's just because his brother. I expect somebody who's 26 going to be 27 this year who gets signed to the UFC, especially like as a heavyweight. I expect you to have some sort of outstanding skill set. You know,
I feel like the wrestling
not to
was really
be
good though.
an elite hater, but the dude that he was like Lucas was on a 3 or 4 fight losing streak, and so for you to come in and like you said, there was some decent wrestling stuff, but it never
I think he needs
translated to
cardio.
damage. Like, where's the
Yeah,
damage? It's when you talk about the elite kind of wrestlers of MMA, it's those guys when they get their takedowns, they don't lose you. They stay on top of you the whole time, and they're like peppering you with damage the whole time. Like it's not just a they get there and then they're like, I don't know if he was looking for a submission. I don't know what that was. Like you can't hold position on a guy who's on a terrible streak, has no reason to have any confidence in the UFC, and like
and it has
you
zero
can't hold
ground
him
game.
down. Yeah, you can't hold him down. You can't submit him. You can't ground and pound him. And then you allow the fight back to the feet where you don't look very good at all. And then by the time the second round comes around, about midway through, you're pretty much gassed. And it's like, I don't know, dude. It's obviously there's still like room for improvement and all that, but if you're not going to take some serious like strides and take this very seriously, I don't see how you're still with the UFC in 2, 3 fights time. Like to me, this feels like a one where the UFC thought that they were giving Walker like a guy to go look good against, like to go get some hype on yourself, and he ended up looking not only not looking good, but also losing the fight. And so I'm
But
sure the
that's the thing
UFC
though.
is
I
looking at
feel
him
like
like, you know what I mean? Like, bro, what are we gonna do?
see, I feel that like when I saw that Lucas had won the fight, I was kind of surprised because I thought Volter did enough to get the win.
I think it was close either
Um,
way. I think it
I
was like
think that
2-1 to somebody.
yeah, but I mean, like, I feel like that's a win, but that I feel like that's for Lucas. But I feel like and he should celebrate. But I feel like also at the same time, it's not. The win was it wasn't like a oh man, I'm really out here win. It was just kind of like a ooh, I barely scraped by type thing. Like
Well,
because
that's the even bigger concern for me though.
if
If I'm the UFC, is like both these guys did not look good at all.
and but then this is the thing, I would say that like Lucas has been here for a while and barely scraped by on that win.
Mm.
Walker UFC debut, maybe it's the nerves, maybe definitely the cardio. Maybe where it's like, you get that adrenaline dump, you know what I mean? Where you're like, you hype yourself up so much that it's kind of like you go into it and it's kind of like that. I don't know if that was the case. I don't know if he just has no cardio. I think that you can build him. I feel like you have, maybe it's just my opinion. And I mean, no, it's not maybe it's my opinion. It's definitely my opinion. But it's my opinion that I think that the UFC has a better chance of building up Volter than they do with trying to rebuild Lucas. Because I think that if Volter goes to Ireland, right, and trains with, because I think that's where Johnny Walker trains now, right? Johnny
Mm.
Walker trains in Ireland, right?
Yeah, SBG.
Right? Okay. Okay, SVG of all places. Hey, it's time for you to pack up shop, go to SVG, go train with Johnny Walker, go train like it's the one guy who won the Ultimate Fighter twice. That guy,
Mhm.
um, I don't know if Connor still trains there, but like you're talking about three strikers, like three, I would say fairly good strikers. Hey, go over there, learn some striking, learn some cardio, and you could potentially have a big um you have a potentially a really big prospect because he already has the size, right? Because I mean, there's other heavyweights that are that size, but he's a large heavyweight, 6'6" and 264. I think him and Robellis are probably the two biggest heavyweights at that division right now. So I think that I think if Volter could work on his cardio and work on his striking, I mean, he already has his brother's Johnny Walker. I feel like you could hit him up and be like, hey, I need you to teach me how to strike. I'm pretty sure it's not guaranteed, but I'm pretty sure Johnny Walker would be like, sure, bro, I got you. Come to Ireland. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, I feel like, and maybe I'm just overthinking, but I feel like it wouldn't be that hard for him to be like, hey, I'm making UFC money now. Send me to Ireland. You know what I mean? Like, hey, and go train because I think that this is his first debut, but I think that yeah, if he worked on his striking and cardio, I think that like he's a potential prospect. I feel like he has potential from what I saw. He just needs to work on like okay, if they get up from the wrestling, what do you do then? Because once you make it towards the top, Curtis Blades is a really good wrestler, but he will put I think as of right now, put Voltaire out like out. He
Oh,
would, but
easily.
like also
Like,
for Chris Blades,
I
as
mean,
yeah, right, exactly. I'm saying yeah, exactly. And then, but the thing is, Curtis Blades is a wrestler. He's the probably the best wrestler in that division. But Curtis has knows that like okay, if someone gets up from wrestling, he can still strike. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
he can still like handle himself on the feet if it need be. You know what I mean? We
Mhm.
saw that with Jailton. He said hammer fist. Um, but I think that nowadays with such talented heavyweights coming into the talented fighters, but for this division as it is, such talented heavyweights. If Walter wants to become a champion, or if he wants to get close to becoming champion, he needs to round out his skill set because once you start getting into that top three, like Cyril is a very well-rounded fighter. I feel like yeah, his wrestling could use some work, but Cyril would piece him apart because Cyril's got the striking, he's got the grappling. No, he got the striking, he's got the cardio, and he does have some submissions. Wrestling wise, he could work on, but Cyril's piecing is like that's a danger fight for him. Tom Aspinall is good everywhere. You know what I mean? He's got the striking, he's got the grappling, he's got the cardio, and he's got the submissions. You know what I mean? Robellis is someone who's his equal size, has the power to put someone away in 18 seconds. You know what I mean? Like the shots he was taking against Lucas, he would not be able to take against Robellis, I feel like. You're seeing people like Curtis Blades. You have people like Tai Tuivasa. You know what I mean? Like I feel like he needs to improve those things to get up there. But I feel like Vulture has a better chance of doing that or building himself up than Lucas because or
I mean,
maybe
I
I'm just
agree with your
being
point
too hard on him, but
overall that he's got the more potential, but if I was the UFC personally, I would be discouraged by that first showing. I mean,
I
I'm
don't
not
know. I
saying
feel,
cut him. I'm just saying like if
Mhm.
you brought him in thinking like this guy's going to be something for us, and that was the first kind of look at that I got at him, I would be questioning whoever told me to sign him. I'd be like, we sure? Like,
And I think maybe he has more of a microscope just because I think we have higher expectations for him just because we all like Johnny Walker. Like, I like, where I don't know too many people who don't like Johnny Walker. You know what I mean? He's a fun dude. He's an exciting fighter. I'm a fan of Johnny Walker. So I think when I heard that he was the brother of Johnny, I kind of already gave him the half nod. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, okay, Johnny Walker's dope. I'm a fan of him. So now if you can put on a decent showing, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be a fan of you. And then he has the look of a fighter, right? Like Voltaire has the look of a fighter, where he's like, if you saw him, you'd be like, oh, that dude's a fighter. He looks big, right? And I think that, but when he had when we saw the cardio fading, and he had kind of a okay, meh debut, I think that more people are gonna be more willing to be like, hey, I don't know, kind of disappointing first half. I think it was also because we have high because we know who his brother is, and we have high expectations for him. It works out in both ways. Like if he'd have came out there and submitted dude in the first round, because we are fans of his brother, I think we would have been like, hey man, the Walker brothers out here. I think we'd have gave him more. He would have got more hype off of that, and like potentially like got like a bigger boost off that. But also because he lost, double-edged sword. Because he lost, we're like, because we're fans of his brother and his brother's dope, to have a kind of a meh performance. You're like, hey man, we was expecting so much from you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like even if I took the expectation off, I was kind of disappointed, but I'm willing to move on from it and go to a different 26-year-old who's big for his weight. Let's talk about Ignacio Bahamondes, because he had a very good performance and looked like he
Oh
is
yeah,
ready for more in his division.
yeah. The knockout was nice. I feel like, but yeah, I feel like this one's more of equivalent. I feel like there's not much to say on this one. He did a good job. That was a good knockout. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, good performance against a tough guy who's kind of like in that pool kind of unranked 55ers, which is one of the hardest pools to kind of be in.
Mhm.
But I think that type of performance from Bahamondes is kind of what you need to get people to start to take notice and sort of get you that opportunity at the back end of the rankings, because it's trying to break in to the rankings at 155 is completely insane. Like there's so many bodies to try and climb up to get to 15 even. So it's I think probably he's going to need one more, just because he's coming off a loss himself. Uh, but I think one more nice one, or like maybe you get your name called for a last minute replacement against somebody who already has a name. I feel like he could be dangerous, especially being, what is he, 6'3" at 155 pounds. Like that's an
Jeez.
interesting skill set to have down there that not many people are going to be able to kind of replicate and train for.
So, who would you like to see him go against next?
That's interesting because I don't think off the back of that, like I wouldn't give him a ranked guy yet just because he lost his last fight. So I would say, I'm trying to think who else is there who's at 155, who's also not ranked, but is because let me see. Do you have a name in mind?
I do not, but what I do know is you never bet against a guy named Ignacio.
Ooh,
Ignacio! You know what I'm talking about? Like, what movie is that from? What movie
is
is
that from
from that?
Nacho Libre?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I
That's
got a
why you
better
never
one.
bet
I
against.
got a better one.
That's
Okay, I got a tie in for that. I got a tie in for the Nacho Libre, and I got who he could fight next at 155, who is
ooh,
also a big guy, Daniel Zellhuber.
ooh, yeah. That's a good. I would like to see that fight. That's a good fight.
6'3" versus 6'1" at 155.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be a good fight. But yeah, the yeah, because I feel like that's just a cool name in general. Ignacio, and like that Ignacio. I feel like let him win a couple more. I feel like that should be. I feel like that should like catch on. Hey, man, it's like that doesn't be true. You know what they say. It doesn't be true. But yeah, the Zero Hooper fight. I feel like that would be good. And then
Do
the
you want to
Brendan
talk about the
Allen.
main event? Do you want
Yeah,
to talk about the main event?
it's just like.
Okay, we don't have to go round by round, but we could touch on it briefly. First of all,
Mhm.
I would like to say that it's very funny. Uh, Chris Curtis got denied the song that he wanted to walk out to
What was
for,
the
I guess,
song?
I forget what he said. It's some song that they couldn't get. Whoever owns the copyright wouldn't approve for him to walk out to. So I guess he was frustrated with that. So instead, he decided to walk out to P Diddy, which a lot of
That's
people
insane.
thought was insane. Yeah, it
That's
was
insane.
super crazy. But I understood when he was talking about it. He was saying I was frustrated that I got denied for the song I wanted. So I just threw something else out that I thought there's no way that they're gonna approve this. But then they just did. So he went, okay, fair play. I guess that's what's happening.
That is mad. That is but fair play to him. It's like, and then I feel like I know there was uh
Well, how did you
some back
end
and
up
forth on
playing
who
score?
people. Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. I wanted to see what you thought. Like, who do
Okay.
you feel won the fight? Because I know there's some people who are kind of back and forth on that.
So I think that like some of the other fights that were scored a little bit strangely on the card, I felt like the kind of thinking on it was were you prioritizing damage or were you prioritizing control? Because I thought Allen had grappling control a few times, and I guess in the judge's mind, that awarded him the points. But to me, the most damage that I saw through the rounds, I ended up with Curtis by one. I had him 3-2 winning the fight. And the one that was surprising to me was I don't know if you were on the same like I pretty much had it 2-2 heading into the fifth, and then I thought Curtis won the fifth, and then the judges saw it completely the opposite somehow. All of them.
Yeah, yeah. Where it's like even yeah, Brandon Allen won, and good for him.
Mhm.
Clap, clap. You know, I think because I do think Brandon Allen is a good fighter. I do think Curtis is a good fighter. I have no qualms with either fighter. I think both of them are good.
Mhm.
And I did have it 2-2 going into the last round, right? Because
Mhm.
I feel that damage wise, it does feel like I feel like that's I mean, like, isn't that what things are judged on most times? I feel
That's what
like
they told
because
us. I don't.
yes, right, and it's like, and if we're going off of that, right,
Mhm.
then Chris Curtis is the one who won the fight. I like both fighters, but if damage is what we're going off of, and damage was put out there, it seems that the fighter who put out the most damage should win the fight, at least by unanimous decision. Not unanimous, split decision. At least by split decision, because I had it 2-2 going into the last. Grappling wise, I know grappling is a part of it. It's like UFC, like octagon control, damage, aggression, all those type of things that like go into all of the choosing of like how things are scored. But I think like when they're grappling, I don't know. It's just he had more grappling. He had the better grappling. Allen did, but I just feel like Chris Curtis had the better striking. But also, Chris Curtis took this fight on like what 6 days notice.
Yeah, I think it was like 1 week, and apparently he wasn't really in
He was like
training
out of
at
shape
the
too.
moment. Yeah, he was kind of coming
Yeah,
off the couch.
and he put on a good performance.
Yeah,
And I thought Chris Curtis won the fifth round. So when they had them standing side by side and they were reading off the scorecard when they were gonna announce who won, I wasn't even paying attention because I thought they were gonna say Chris Curtis. And then when they said Brendan Allen, I was like, I had to rewind. I said, because I was like, huh. Almost had to be like, I was just like, I was not
well,
expecting that.
all of it makes it even crazier that afterwards Allen was calling for a title shot, like
Yeah, that was,
not reading the room at an elite level.
yeah. Uh, like that's one of those moments where fair play to Allen for shooting his shot because what like Wayne Gretzky's what was that Wayne what was that thing from The Office or something like that where it's like Wayne Gretzky said you miss 100% of the shots you never take or whatever it was. I can't remember if that was from The Office or whatever it was,
Yeah, it
but
was
that
the original quote is Wayne Gretzky. And it's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and then in the
that
office he goes dash Michael Scott.
that right where it's like fair play to him for like shooting his shot and calling for the opportunity because closed mouths don't get fed, plain
No,
and simple. You know what I mean? But also that could be a next day thing. You know what I mean? Like social media, you make a post say, "Hey, I would really hope to have a title opportunity next," or you after the fight, you go talk to if you can't talk to Mick, Sean, Dana, whoever you need to talk to, have your people contact their people, ask for a title shot. I just don't know. I feel like that sounds like that's like a next day thing or after the cameras turn off thing. You know what I mean? Because after a fight like that, to be like title shot. Eh, eh. Well, let me ask you: do you think he should get a title shot?
no, I mean like
And
I don't even
and
see
then
how he
like
could make
if
an argument because I mean Sean and Izzy
because those
both have clear claim before anybody else, and then beyond that you have
Robert
the
Whitaker,
Whitaker and Kamzat fight,
Hamzat.
which is going to be a main event on ABC. So odds are pretty decent that they're going to put something on that for to make it meaningful. So it's probably going to be like a golden ticket to go fight for the belt next. So at that point, like you're not even top three options to fight for the belt. Like there's three guys in front of you.
Who do,
You got to pick somebody else.
is yeah, is how many fights do you think he should do before he goes for the belt? But crazier things have happened.
I
Paul
mean,
Ursig is fighting for the title.
I guess it would depend on who he fights next because I could see if you're the UFC saying like okay, you beat a guy who's ranked 14 on 1 week's notice, barely. Uh, like, if you're the UFC, you might be like, okay, well, you're gonna have to fight back again because that was not a super great performance, and you were very close to a guy who's ranked way below you. And I mean, like, if I don't know who is in charge of the rankings or whatever, but if I was adding in my own rankings, I would move Chris Curtis up off the back of that, and at worst, I'd keep Allen at the same place. Like, I wouldn't move
That's
him
fair.
up based on that performance.
I don't know. I feel that like that's fair. I think so too. I think that that's one of those. Yeah, shouldn't go super up. I would say yeah, I would move Chris Curtis up and then Brendan Allen up at see I mean like at the same level. But in hey, if he can win one more fight, let's say if he goes on his next fight and gets the finish, we've seen crazier things happen.
Yeah, I
Like Paul
mean,
Ursig is fighting for the title now against Pantoja, and I think what isn't he like 11 or something like that?
uh, yeah, I think so. Let me check.
And like
No, he's 10, but still, I mean,
10 still
point. Yeah, point kind of stands.
like I mean like if 10's getting a shot at one, and then wasn't Strickland like 8 when he fought Izzy
Trying to remember.
or like 6?
He might have been.
5?
I feel like he was somewhere between 4 and 6. I know he definitely wasn't higher than 4 when he got the shot.
So it's like I think if maybe Allen goes out there and his next fight gets the early finish, puts a stamp on it, maybe crazier things have happened. So maybe I think that. But props to Chris Curtis for putting on a a really good performance. Good wording is hard. Um, but props for Chris Curtis for putting on a strong performance on 6 days' notice and being out of shape and still making it to the end. And in my book, technically won, but who
Well,
am I?
and ripping up your hamstring, because I've done that before, and that stinks.
Yeah. Yo, even just catching a cramp in your leg,
Yeah.
that calf grab, you pull a hammy, even worse. Just yeah, that's pretty insane. But this is let's wrap. Go ahead and wrap it up. We're almost at an hour and a half. There's our music. Those are the vibes. If you appreciate the episode, if you enjoyed it, we appreciate you, and we hope you come back. Come back and vibe us. Come chill, listen to us ramble on about fights. If you didn't like it, well, tough cookies. Thumbs up. We appreciate the view though. But all joking aside, if you enjoyed it, we appreciate it. We hope you guys come back. If you didn't, you're not gonna like everything. Everyone's gonna be their cup of tea, you know. But yes, we are two dudes who are just just chopping it up. So we hope you guys have a wonderful day, regardless, and we shall see you guys next time. Peace.